Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down 15 different mid lane tips that will greatly improve your mid lane gameplay for season 10. So if we just jump right into it here for number one, you should be looking to shove or freeze your lane depending on your lane matchup and depending on jungle pressure. So many mid laners, especially in low elo, will just do the exact same thing with their wave every game. They won't even think about, okay, would a freeze be good here? Would shoving be good here? So let's go over a couple examples as to when you would want to shove or when you'd want to freeze. So for example here, say you're playing Katarina into Talon. Talon beats Katarina extremely hard at the level 2, so as the Katarina player, you wouldn't want to be trying to push the wave level 1. You don't want to be queuing the wave unless it's to last hit minions. You just want to let Talon shove into you. So in matchups to where the enemy does have kill threat on you in the first couple levels, you want to make sure you're not shoving the wave and make sure that the enemy is pushing into you. If your jungler's playing aggressive, if he's looking for an invade play, then you should be trying to hard shove your wave in as quick as possible and just look to back him up. If he's in the enemy jungle, invading the enemy jungler, you want to be the one to move first. So in that situation there, you just want to hard shove the wave and back up your jungler. Now, if you have the winning matchup in the early game, if you're stronger than your opponent, then you can kind of dictate what you do in the laning phase. So if the enemy ends up pushing the wave into you or something, if they end up hard shoving, then you can just set a freeze at your tower and just look to zone them, look to poke them, be very safe yourself. If they're just conceding the wave though and letting you do whatever you want, then you can just hard shove into them, try to deny them CS under tower. So you really have a lot of options for yourself if you're the one in the winning matchup. And then just always take a look at who the enemy jungler is as well to determine how you should be playing in lane. If the enemy jungler has a really good level 3 ganking jungler or even a level 2 ganking jungler, then just play accordingly, right? Don't push up too far in lane or hover the side of the lane to where your jungler is or to where you have vision to make sure that you don't end up dying to an early gank. So for number 2 now, let the wave bounce back to you if you have kill threat in lane. So a lot of players, what they'll do in the laning phase is they'll just constantly shove the enemy under tower, look to be poking them under tower, and they won't let the wave reset back towards their side of the lane and set a freeze and start zoning the opponent or start to pressure for a kill. So what you want to do is if the wave is even and it's on the enemy side of the lane, it's going to eventually bounce back towards you because the enemy wave is going to reach lane quicker than your wave is, and it's going to start attacking your wave faster, and therefore it's going to start slow pushing back towards your side of the lane. And this is just a really good thing to do if you want to set up an early kill in the laning phase. So you just don't want to auto attack or you don't want to be shoving the wave at all. You just want to last hit the minions. It's going to shove back towards you, and then you can look to zone the enemy from the wave and you can look to set up a solo kill. Now for number 3 here, look to use a cheater recall to gain an early lane advantage. How you do this is you want to slow push the first 2 waves into the enemy, and then once the cannon wave arrives, you just want to hard push the cannon wave into the enemy's tower and get a recall. By doing this, it's going to allow for you a lot more time to get back to lane. You're not going to lose out on very much gold or XP at all, and you're also going to give yourself an early item advantage. Now, when you're in loading screen, you want to have a game plan. You want to think about, okay, can I actually perform a cheater recall in this matchup? Because depending on what champion you're playing, depending on the matchup, you're not going to be able to do this every single game. If you're playing a weak early game mid lane champion, say you're playing Kassadin into something like Syndra, you're not going to get a cheater recall off as the Kassadin in that matchup. It's just really not possible because you don't have the ability to shove in Syndra in the early game. You don't have any good wave clear with the champion, so you can't cheater recall in every single matchup. You definitely have to think about it in loading screen, think about how the matchup is going to play out and whether or not you can perform that cheater recall. So number 4, this one also has to do with your base timings, and it's going to be to always try and time your bases around the cannon wave. So in the laning phase, if you're winning lane, if you have pressure in lane, you always want to try to be the one to get the first base in. You want to be keeping up tempo in the laning phase, and how you want to do this, the best time for you to look to base a lot of the time is for you to just shove in the wave prior to the cannon wave, and then when the cannon wave is coming in, when it arrives, that's when you want to be basing. The reason you want to do this is very similar to the cheater recall strategy, to where you're not going to be losing out on very much gold or XP at all if you base on this cannon wave, because it's just going to take the enemy a lot longer to shove that cannon wave into your tower, and when the cannon minion hits your tower, it's going to tank a lot more shots from your tower, and it's just going to give you a lot more time to get back to lane. So for number 5, look to play around enemy cooldowns to win trades. Most mid lane champions are very spell reliant. If their abilities are on cooldown, chances are they're not going to be able to win a trade against you. So if you notice the enemy just using abilities on the wave, or if they just miss a random ability, then that's your opportunity to play aggressive. Take advantage of the enemy not having their spells. If they just stay in lane, continue to auto attack the minion wave, then play aggressive, look to trade into them. This is what you should be looking to do. Like if you're in low elo especially, you're gonna see this every single game. The enemy will just randomly waste abilities, look to trade into them, and if you can just focus on doing this, you're going to gain so many advantages for yourself in the laning phase. For number 6 now, always look to try to keep up pressure in lane after you get a kill. Don't be overstaying for an extra minion wave, don't be overstaying for tower damage unless you need to hit an item spike. If you're very close to your lost chapter buy, then in that situation it's fine to give up a bit of pressure to hit that really good spike, but a lot of the time players will just stay in lane for way too long after they get a kill. The enemy mid will come back, they'll have pressure on them now, you won't get a good base time in, you'll lose a wave. So you just really want to focus on trying to get back to lane at the same time the enemy does after you get a kill, so you keep up tempo in lane so you don't allow them to roam. A lot of the times what will happen is you'll overstay a bit too long, the enemy will come back to lane before you, and now he has the opportunity to roam even though you've just gotten a kill on him. That doesn't even matter if you give up pressure and you give him a roam opportunity bot lane, because if he just roams bot because you don't have pressure now on him and gets a double kill, that solo kill you got on him earlier on in the laning phase really doesn't matter too much anymore. Number 7 now, look to call out roam plays well before they happen or immediately as the enemy does leave lane. This is so important for mid lane because a lot of mid lane champions like to roam. A lot of mid lane champions in the meta right now especially do tend to roam quite a bit, so you just want to make sure you give your bot lane or your top lane adequate enough time to react to that gank or react to the roam. So as soon as you see them leave lane, spam a couple missings on your lane and then start to spam danger pings as to where you think the enemy is, and spam a danger ping on your bot lane or on your top lane. You can also type in chat like mid missing or mid has roam. If you're walking back to lane and the enemy shoves your wave in and it looks like they're gonna roam, a lot of the time what I'll do is before they even look to roam, I'll just say mid has roam or mid has pressure here, so don't look to play aggressive, and then my team a lot of the time will just back off, they'll play safe and they won't end up dying to that roam. Now for number 8, always try and be the first to rotate to scuttle fights. This is especially important if you're playing a mid lane champion who has good push in the laning phase. If you have the ability to shove a wave in very quickly and roam, then you should be looking to do this. As soon as you see your jungler walk into the river, as soon as you see him going towards that crab, hard shove the wave in and just rotate over. It doesn't even matter if you see the enemy jungler on the map or know where he is, rotate over, because who knows, the enemy jungler might just face check right into you guys. You might get yourself a free kill. This happens in a lot of games to where the enemy jungler is just gonna walk right in, you and your jungler get the crab and a free kill, and the game is pretty much over at that point. At least in higher elo, the game can just be won off of a single scuttle fight, so just make sure you are keeping this in mind in your future games. Now for number 9, always look to hover the side of the map that you have vision on. Unless you're trying to like bait in the enemy jungler to gank you, then you can hover the side to where you know the enemy jungler is. But if you are very vulnerable in lane, like if you don't have your flash or if you just want to be playing very safe in lane, then just always look to play towards the side of the lane to where you have the most vision or to where your jungler is, just to make sure that you're very safe from ganks and so that you don't end up dying in the laning phase. Now, as for where you want to be placing your early wards in the laning phase, you don't want to be placing your ward in the side bush unless you don't have really any other option. If you have priority in lane, if you're pushing the enemy under tower, then you always want to try to plant your ward above the river entrance there, or you want to plant it in the pixel bush. You can also get an early ward on the enemy jungler's buff to know where they're pathing in the early game, but by using these wards, it just gives you more vision overall of where the enemy jungler is looking to path, because if you just have a ward in your side bush there, you're not going to be able to catch the jungler. Say if he's going from like raptors towards top side, you're not going to catch him doing that if you just have a ward in the side bush. So by using these wards, it's just going to give you more information and more time as well to react to the enemy jungler if he's ganking you. Now, as for your pink ward placement in the laning phase, this is always going to be dependent on how the lane is going for you. So if you're winning lane, if you have pressure, if you're shoving the enemy under tower, you got a lot of different options as to where you can plant your pink ward. You can plant it in the side bush, in the pixel bush, or in the bush above the river. If you're losing lane though, if you don't have any pressure at all, if the enemy's pushing you under tower, then you usually just want to use a defensive pink ward. You don't want to place it in the side bush, because if you place your pink in the side bush and the enemy shoves you in and just walks right down and clears it out, you're basically just giving them free gold. So you want to place it defensively in the bush below the river if you are getting shoved in. Number 12 is to always look at your lane state after you get a kill from a roam. This is so important. If you get a kill in an early skirmish on the enemy mid laner, or if you get a kill on a roam down bot lane, take a look at mid lane and see if you need to go back and shove mid wave in. If the wave is slow pushing towards you, or if the wave is even, don't waste time going back towards mid and shoving mid lane in. Just base right away and keep up your pressure, keep up your tempo in lane. The only time you want to go back to lane after a skirmish or a roam is if the wave is in a bad spot for you. So if the wave is slow pushing in towards the enemy, if there's a lot of minions on your side compared to the enemy's side, then you want to go back to mid, shove the wave in, and deny the enemy as many minions as you can. But if the wave is slow pushing towards you, or if it's even, it's going to be best for you to just base and keep up your tempo in lane. Number 13 is going to be to don't walk into the river and follow the enemy's roam if you don't have any vision at all. So if you have no vision in the river, if you don't have any clue on where the enemy jungler is, don't just face check into the river to try to follow the enemy's roam. Spam ping that they're roaming, tell your team to back off, and just stay mid and shove mid wave in. Shove mid in. If you notice them show up bot lane, unless you're 100% sure you can get a kill by roaming bot, by walking all the way down bot lane, just stay mid, look for tower plates. 2 tower plates are worth more than a kill a lot of the time, because you're going to be getting those plates. You're also going to be getting XP and gold from minions, and if the enemy only gets like an assist on a roam, it's actually going to be worth it for you, or you're going to be stronger than the enemy after that play. So don't just put yourself in a bad situation. If you don't have any vision at all, don't look to roam. Spam ping. If your bot lane ends up flaming you for not roaming, then just mute them, because they're wrong. If you don't have any vision, you can't look to follow the roam. Now, there are certain situations though to where you can look to walk into river even if you don't have any vision. If you know where the enemy jungler is, if you see him like top side or something and the enemy mid walks into bot river, if you're as strong as the enemy mid, or if you can 1v1 them, then you can walk into river, you can try to follow them. If your jungler is right beside you as well, if they're there to back you up, then you can walk into river, you can try to face check, because if you know you're safe, if you know you're not going to die, even if you don't have vision, you can still look to walk in. Now, once you hit the mid game, once you get the enemy bot lane tower down, then if you're playing a good duelist mid lane champion, good 1v1 pick, good assassin, then look to dip into the side lane and just look to farm your solo XP and your solo gold. You don't want to be staying mid, especially like on an assassin pick, and you don't want to be A-ramming, because you're just going to fall so far behind in XP and you're just going to be a lot weaker than you could be. So just look to shove out that side wave, look for a flank opportunity mid. If you see the enemy pushing out too far, then you can look for a flank mid, and you can just keep rinsing and repeating that. So shove out the side lane, get your solo XP, look for a flank play, just keep doing that. Certain mid lane champions you can't do this on though. If you're playing like a mage mid lane pick, or if you're just playing a mid lane champion who doesn't have very good 1v1 potential, you kind of have to stay mid and you can't really dip into the side lane unless you are very far ahead, and unless you know you're not vulnerable to dying to like a 1v1, or there's nobody on the enemy team that can kill you. So it is somewhat judgment based, but most games, like, you want to make sure you're trying to get your solo XP so that you don't end up falling behind. And then lastly, to round out the video here, look at bans on the enemy team to determine where the enemy flex picks are going. This is just really important to make sure you're taking the right defensive rune, whether it be armor or magic resist. So for example, if the enemy team picks Aurelia and Ryze and you're not too sure if Aurelia is going top or mid, then just take a look at the champion that she's banned. If she banned Darius, chances are she's going top lane, and especially if Ryze bans something like LeBlanc, then you pretty much know 100% that Ryze is going mid and Aurelia is going top. So you can take magic resist in that situation, and you just make sure that you're the strongest you can possibly be, because there's so many games, or there's a lot of games to where you can't do this, and to where you end up taking the wrong defensive rune, and it just feels really bad in that situation. But at least by using this strategy, you can kind of minimize the chances that that's going to happen. So that's gonna be it, guys. That's gonna round out the video. Hopefully this does help you out and it does improve your mid lane gameplay for season 10. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.